1. And welcome back to the Constitutionals podcast. I'm your host, Chad White. If you didn't know, this is the premier podcast for the website, cpluscomedy.com. Like I just said, it's a website. Go there. Hey, everybody, episode 239 of the Constitutionals podcast. There's a cat toy in the background. I do think that there is that we would be way ahead if I had not stopped for a little bit. But here we are. Here we are doing this show once again. Sorry, I'm just checking my email because I think this is an opportune time for me to do an episode of this stupid show and check my email. What are we doing? What's happening? What's going on today? Well, let's see. I am... nothing. I just shot 3 episodes of News Time back to back. And in fact, I believe if this is out on time, the next episode of News Time after this show, after the Constitutionals, is episode 400. I have no idea what I'm going to do. Episode 300 was a big extravaganza with all the characters, and I just don't have the room to do that right now. And I mean the room in my head to do this right now, to do that part. So I don't know. I'll see what happens with 400. I think 200 was an interview with myself, or maybe that was 100. I don't know. I don't remember what episodes were what. I do happen to remember 300. Because 300 was big. 300 feels like it was last year, but no, it was 2 years ago. And it was still tough to do at that point, too. And now I have less, somehow I've gotten better at, the technical stuff, but now I have, my equipment's worse. This computer's not as tough, not as powerful as the last. I mean, technically it is. It's actually better. And then I've got the camera I'm using as my phone. Anyway, things have changed. Let's talk about what's going on in this show, in this episode of the Constitutionals podcast. Well, there's a lot of things, There's a lot of things happening, and we are going to talk about it. It's me opening up links as I try to get through what's going on here. Listen, let's talk about this first thing. This comes from Ariel Shapiro over at The Verge. Why every new TV show has a podcast. So if you haven't noticed, a lot of shows are getting companion podcasts now. And let's just go back to what's happening. I think when podcasting was nascent, it was just people getting behind whatever microphone they could and, trying to make each other laugh, essentially, or, talk about pop culture or whatever. Then as things got a little bit more prescient with money and everything, I was going to say film, with money, people started doing a lot of recap podcasts. And I think one of the first prominent ones that I can think of is the Gilmore Guys, Demi Adijuibe and this young friend over there. I'm sorry, that was mean. Let me figure out this guy's name. I think he was his roommate, Rory something. I don't know. Gilmore Girls. No, Gilmore Guys. That's what I was looking for. That was hosted by Kevin T. Porter, his friend. And roommate, I think, at that time. But they did that show, and it was very popular. It was just recapping Gilmore Girls with those two guys and guests, and it was funny and engaging. I've never listened to it. I have no interest. But there we go. But now every show seemingly has a recap podcast. And even still, New Girl, 3 of the cast members of New Girl, I think it was Lamar Morris and Jessica Day, Zooey Deschanel, and the beautiful Hannah. The beautiful Hannah Simone. I always have to just throw the adjective I need to throw in front of there. But they have their own show that they're hosting. I think it's sponsored by iHeartRadio or not. And then also the guys who created Always Sunny, along with their head writer and I think their producer Megan Gans, they're hosting a show. And I've caught a couple of minutes of a couple of episodes. And, to some extent, and then also there's The Office Ladies, which I think just created a boom for this type of rewatch stuff. But to some extent, I think that some of these shows are and can be the versions, like for It's Always Sunny, the podcast. I don't know what it's called, but It's Always Sunny, the podcast. That one in particular is interesting because they have like maybe have a 40-minute episode, and they spend 30 of those minutes just talking about nothing, like truly just telling stories, and that's it. And then they go, oh, and Glenn, Charlie was molested in this episode, and then Glenn was that we said, hey, it wouldn't be funny if Glenn was a murderer, and and that's what that is. At least I've never gotten to a point in the episodes. Again, I've only listened to a couple of minutes, a couple of episodes, but I never get to a point, even if I skip around, where they're actually talking about the show, which is interesting. So, with Ariel here over at The Verge, and I believe she's the new host of the Hot Pod, this newsletter and podcast, premier audio industry newsletter, talking about the shows. But Ariel is talking about the companion pods and why they are here, and if you watch a lot of HBO stuff, and if you work for HBO, then you notice that there's a lot of HBO shows that have their own podcasts. And the thing is, it's not about making money. If you look at it, it's really it's truly a companion. It's expanding on the stories. You get behind the scenes stuff, or if you're a show like The Problem with Jon Stewart, that show, even though it's not that good, you still get more Jon Stewart, even if like you get these interviews with these people who can talk more about the topic that was in the show. You get for HBO, you get to talk about The Wire, what it was for at age 20. Now it's been 20 years. I think it's I don't like it appearing on the app. I don't like loading up HBO Max and seeing, let's listen to Insecure, the podcast, after you watch Insecure. I don't like seeing that. However, I do, because like who's gonna go, oh, let me just sit down and turn on my Apple TV, turn on my LG TV, turn on my Google Chromecast, my Roku, my Amazon Fire, my Xbox, my PlayStation. Let me just turn on these devices and let me sit down, turn on HBO Max, and let me play Batman: The Audio Adventures. Like no one, if you are watching a audio podcast on your television, please send me your television. give me your television. Please send it to me. So the thing is, they don't necessarily have to make money. There's not that what Oriel writes. There's not that much on the ROI, the return on investment. It's what the brands want. It's trying to just market to you in a way that does not feel like marketing. So you have the Insecure podcast, you have the Game of Thrones podcast, and these are official, and you get to talk to the people. You get the Office Ladies podcast where they're releasing merch. You get to see them do live shows, and you're still getting ads from the podcast feed. You're still getting, if it's a show that's on right now, then you're still getting something that like that is getting people to rewatch the show. If someone sees It's Always Sunny has a podcast, they're going to do the rewatch with them. They're going to say, all right, every week I'm going to watch an episode of Always Sunny, or I'm going to bank up a bunch of episodes and watch them all at once, and then listen to the first season of the podcast. Same thing for The Office. The only place you can get The Office is Peacock. The only place you can get Always Sunny is Hulu. You're going to have to subscribe to those in order to watch the show along with these people. And I mean, it pays off. If you like the show, if you are a subscriber to that platform and you like listening to the podcast, then you're fine. And it makes sense. It makes sense in the end. Let's move on to this one. This comes from Variety, written by Brian Steinberg. CBS Moles replacing James Corden with late night panel show after exit. So I talked about this last week, that James Corden is going to leave the Late Show next spring, and we will have to deal with somebody with hosts coming in and out of that show for a little bit. I don't think that they would go to reruns. I would hope they don't go to reruns. Like, they don't need that. Just until you decide what's going to happen, they should have rotating guest hosts who do like week-long stints or something like that. And I think doing a week-long stint is better than, but then that means they have to pay a writing team. They have to, do sets and all that stuff. And I know that Paramount, and I know that nobody wants to do that, quite frankly. But I think, I mean, give me the show. Give me the show for the summer. I promise you, I will move to LA. I'll do the show for the summer. And I think it'll be fun. It'll be engaging. And when everybody's going on vacation, I can still do the show. So Corden's going to leave in 2023. And a panel show might come in. So this is going to be a show along the lines of like politically incorrect. And again, this is all just conjecture. We don't know if this is really happening. Politically Incorrect, which, Bill Maher hosted back in the late 90s. And then Chelsea Lately was a panel show on E! And even though it was like mostly gossip and stuff like that, it was a very interesting and funny show because I think Chelsea's a very funny person. And I think she'll surround herself with funny people. And then, At Midnight, that was a show that had writers and it came off as improv-y, but it brought on comedians that talked about the day's news and Twitter and all that stuff, but in bite-sized chunks. It was very funny. It was like the internet, the TV show. It's a very funny show for what it was at the time. The Late Late Show, I mean, they do have room to experiment on CBS with this. Because the late night is saturated with white guys talking about, doing a monologue, doing a bit piece, interviews, and then a musical guest. But I mean, I don't know. You have to be smart about this. You can, the monologue, desk piece, interviews, music guest, or comedian can still work. It can still work as long as the desk piece and the monologue and the interviews and the comedian and the band, they're all different. These things don't have to be the same every single night. And I think, let's look at Seth Meyers' show, Late Night. Late Night, I think, really does a good job of capturing how everything can be the same, but also it can have a different energy to it. Closer Look is way different from Karen Chi doesn't know what the hell things are. Because she doesn't know how to use Google. It's that, and those two are different from Jokes Seth Can't Tell. I mean, now they're all fighting for, if you listen to last week's episode, they're all late night shows are essentially fighting for ratings on when they air, but mostly ratings online. It's all about the clips online. It doesn't matter what you do on air anymore. I mean, it doesn't matter, how you do on air. That really, it does play into it, but more or less, you want to get hits on TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. That's how you make the money. So what happens when these new concepts don't do well? If you remember, Robin Thede had a panel style show on BET. The Nightly Show, which was the Nightly Show on after the Daily Show on Comedy Central, hosted by Larry Wilmore. I mean, that was a panel show, and that was just a wasted name on that show. I mean, I wish we could bring back the Nightly Show and let the Daily Show have a companion show. I just talked about companion podcast, but have a show that follows up after it. And I mean, that show. I was waiting for that show to redeem itself. I wish it had gotten that full year. I think it was it was canceled before the presidential election. I wish it had gotten to that. I wish it had gotten the election. Like, imagine if SNL, the season ended at the start of the election. Like, nobody would, care. But anyway, panel shows, and I think the fact is, what's the last remaining late night panel show? It's Bill Maher's show. It's the last 20 minutes of his show on Friday nights. That's the last time panel shows have that's the last panel show that really do well. I think Fox News has the 5, but I don't know if people are really watching that. And I think also on Fox News, Bill Gimber. What is it with that guy's name who has that late night show that apparently is doing really well, but like only with racists? Greg Gutfeld. It's in this article. So it's you have room to experiment, do it smart, and don't go off air next summer. Like after in spring when Corden leaves, don't go off air. I think they need to, like Kimmel does when he goes on vacation or when he's sick and he sets up people with like week-long stints at his show. They need to have a month of or not a month. I think a month is too long. A week of Justin Bieber hosting. I think they could really. I think they could get away with stuff like that. With Justin Bieber hosting, a week of Wanda Sykes hosting, a week of just people who don't normally get these chances to do that, and maybe even people who aren't that big. I think like if you get a comedian that's like a B-list comedian, a C-list comedian, and they're able to show off what they have, and then you say, oh wow, this comedian can really, like Nicole, like if Nicole Byer, I know she hosts a lot of stuff, but like if Nicole Byer had a week at the Late Late Show doing whatever is able to be done on broadcast television for 45 minutes or 42 minutes, then try it. I think it'll be good. So let's continue down with this. People familiar with the matter suggest CBS is mindful of having the new show's production costs align with the new ways people are watching late night TV, i.e. online. So in some views, the big late night shows remain tied to some of TV's earliest traditions and may not be as relevant to an audience that often watches comedy clips on phones and tablets. Many networks have chosen to test weekly shows that have ties to late night antics, such as Samantha Bee's Full Frontal, or TBS's on TBS, or Desus and Mero on Showtime. But I think the thing is, with those two shows in particular, Full Frontal was always meant to be weekly, and Desus and Mero was bi-weekly, but unfortunately they were taken down to one episode a week, and it's suffering because of it. I think so. Anyway, but a panel show would be different enough. They just have to have a good panel. And obviously, I think every night it would be a rotating panel if they just had a set number of people, obviously, 4, and like one moderator or something like that. But obviously, but if they, I said obviously 4 times in the sentence or in this episode, but if they had reliable voices to hear from, and then maybe and then some outside voices, because you turn on CNN or MSNBC and you watch or CNBC, and you watch the news, and you watch a show. They're not going to have the same people all the time. They usually have for CNBC Squawk Box, they have 3 people, Joe, Becky, and Andrew. But then they always interview different people for every episode. This last week it was a lot of Republican. Joe was over. I joked to myself in the cat that Joe's over there having the time of his life talking to all the Republicans he can, just bashing on Biden and gas and stuff. He does not hide. He's not like everybody else. He does not hide things. Speaking of which, also speaking of the news, slightly. So they're getting rid of the breaking Chris Licht, who's now the new CNN CEO or bigwig, who was in charge of CBS Mornings and was in charge of Late Show on with Stephen Colbert. He said that they should get rid of the breaking news banner on CNN, which is something that I have been saying for years. And then he also said, this is something I don't know if I fully agree with, but he said that the partisan politics will have to be toned down on CNN. Like they can't just bring people on and then have someone on the left essentially just yell, or like have people yell at each other essentially. Which I that makes sense, but and you don't want to get down to the level of Fox News and OAN and the other ones. But CNN, if it's supposed to be the middle thing, then have more middle voices, or just have a different way to talk about things, because every show is the same, and that's what the streaming platform was for. And when you cancel that, then you don't really have anything, to go through the middle. So anyway, let's go with this late night thing. So a panel show, how would that work? I mean, you still need to do a rundown of the day's news. But then look at Comedy Central, and it's every late night show that's not the Daily Show has been a panel show. And they have all been bad. And I will say that, except for Jim Jeffries' show, I think that show was actually pretty funny. I don't want to say actually pretty funny. Was pretty funny. But every show since then, Problematic, even though I did write a good review for it. But, Problematic, that show with Moshe Kasher, and then David Spade's show. David Spade's like 4 shows on that network. It's I remember one time when I was in middle school, David Spade had a show on. Oh God, I just remembered Black News. Was that a show on Comedy Central? Black News Comedy Central. If the Daily Show pops up, I'm gonna be so Chocolate News. That's what it was called. It was David Allen Greer. Oh my God, I watched that show. That's crazy. That show just popped up in my head, and I just remembered it. Okay. Anyway, so Showbiz Show with David Spade. I remember watching that show because I had a TV in my room because I was a latchkey kid, and I remember watching that show one night, and then they did a joke about like Michael Jackson was spotted, somewhere doing something. I don't know. And then the punchline to the joke was, and we have video for it of it. And the punchline was, and the video was, Smeagol or Gollum from Lord of the Rings trying to like drowning in a pond or something, not in a pond, like in a small puddle trying to get to the ring or something like that. And it was a very funny punchline, I guess, for the time. And I remember going, that's so, like, I laughed so hard at that. I thought it was very funny. And then I went to school the next day, and we were in an art class, and my entire class was standing around a table, and I guess we were learning how to do some project. And I remember listening to the teacher, and out of nowhere, I bursted out laughing. I just could not contain myself. I was laughing so hard, and people started looking at me, and it was because of that clip. I was thinking of the clip because I thought, wow, that's such a funny punchline. I just could not contain myself, and I was laughing, and everyone was staring at me, and I remember holding my stomach because I was laughing so hard, and I started crying because it was such a funny joke at the time. I guarantee if I watched it now, it wouldn't be anything special. But I remember like telling my teacher, like looking at my teacher and going, no, you can keep going, and he was like, what the hell is this kid laughing at? Like, what's so funny? And then I tried to explain, and then I couldn't. So that's what that was. Let your kids watch shows they should. Let's move on. Speaking of Chris Litch, like 20 minutes ago when I started that story. This one comes from Variety, written by Brent Lang, Matt Donnelly, Rebecca Rubin. Why Warner Bros. Discovery shook up its film business and what happens next. So there have been a lot of people, higher ups, execs, and everything at Warner Bros. Discovery, particularly on the Warner Bros. Side, that have left the company and have been replaced with Discovery people. That's just what happens in these acquisitions. It stinks. It sucks. We've seen it at Disney when Disney bought Fox assets, and they had a lot of doubled up people. Guess who were the ones to leave? The Fox people. Anyway, Zaslav, they're looking again to cut $3 billion in cost savings, and hopefully they're done. God, hopefully they're done. Oh, please. and now Warner Bros. Discovery WBD is trying to reimagine the structure of its film business. Zaslav, this comes from the article, says that was said to be enamored with what the Walt Disney Company has achieved in operating its media operations as a series of distinctive brands with the likes of Marvel's Kevin Feige, Lucasfilm's Kathleen Kennedy, and Pixar's Jim Morris and Pete Docter, overseeing independent fiefdoms, all led by white people. Not surprised. Anyway, so they're trying to do that, and it's really taking shape. Maybe not in a way that most people will see, but it is taking shape. So there's going to be 2 people running Warner Bros. Pictures and New Line Cinema, which is going to stand next to Warner Bros. Animation and DC Films. So it looks like there's 4 different arms, all of the movie sector. All labels had previously reported up to one person, who is now no longer with the company, and now the execs for New Line are gonna they're unsure, like the execs if they're gonna be part of it. So New Line has an exec and DC Films has an exec, but everyone's unsure right now if they're still gonna be a part of that situation. This situation. and so the problem of this is that no one know and yes, they know who they report to now, but if they feel like people in the company feel, according to this article, not me, I know, but according to this article, people feel as though that this creates a little bit more walls, and what they've written, it says more silos here. During AT&T's brief ownership, which lasted from 2018 to 2022, the company invested a lot of time in breaking down barriers across the various divisions to create more opportunities for collaboration, which, yes, is true and makes sense. That's why we got. I mean, that's why we got Ezra Miller. Oh, good, on the CW's Flash. That's why he was able to pop up for half a second. It was like 5 minutes. So that's why we got things like that. That's why we have, some characters in that universe, the Arrowverse, dying and then able to pop up better versions in the movies. Whereas in Marvel, they don't exist. Things don't exist for some reason. We're seeing, it feels like it's a lot of consolidation, and in some cases it is. But I think when you look at it on the broad side, the big picture, yes, it's a little bit of it's consolidation, but it doesn't feel like the arms can talk to each other anymore. We won't see the fruits of their labor for a couple of years. So if there's anything that can more creative that can come out of this, anything on the HBO Max side that can come out of this, it'll at the earliest we'll probably see it in 2024, because movies and TV shows take a very long time. So I guess I'm saying so. What is the bigger picture of this? What is so if Zaslav is trying to create a Disney-esque company, but that is not just a family-friendly thing, because let's face it, that's all Disney is family-friendly. How can they appear different? How can they stand out over at Warner Bros. Discovery? I think it's reaching into that deep pocket in the well of what you have, the classics, the new classics, and really utilizing it, and really taking what you have on HBO Max, taking what you have on linear on television, and taking what you have theatrically, and really hoisting them up, and not getting rid of things because of how they perform, or how poorly they perform, or and not just poorly, but I mean like critically and everything. If something does well critically and is performing poorly, then don't just rely on those numbers. Rely on are people liking it, and really turning into it. It's hard to talk about because we don't know what's going to happen, and so it would have to be summer of 2022 to see. Okay, here's the next DC movie that is releasing. Here's, I don't know what movies are coming out. Here's Wonder Woman 3, excuse me. Wonder Woman 2001. I have to stop these towers from falling. What happened? I'm sorry. I apologize. I do apologize. So we would have to see, and then also what in 2024. Okay, here's what HBO Max has to offer. Here's what's on HBO proper. Here's what's on, here are all the sports we have on TBS, because now it's a sports channel. Here's what Cartoon Network is. They're really gonna have to dig deep and buckle down on what they do have, and because even today they canceled Made for Love, which is a show I think did well critically and with audiences and critics. But even if I saw, Krista Milotti go out for interviews on Tonight Show and Late Night and everything, it probably still did not do the numbers that they expected it to do. So, yeah, I just want things to be fine. Hey, listen, let's talk about this last thing. Also comes from Variety, written by Michael Schneider. The 100 most watched TV series of 2021 and 2022. There's winners and losers, and baby, it's exactly what you think it is. Shows like Yellowstone, Taylor Sheridan's Yellowstone, just murdered. It's crazy that Yellowstone even I knew, like, we knew that it was it's a popular show, but season 4 just, or season 3, I guess, I don't know, season 4, I think season 4 just really opened up the doors, and oh my gosh, it's amazing how that show could do better than shows that are on CBS on broadcast. And according to this article, it did better than NCIS and total viewers. And even still, Sheridan's other shows, the spinoff 1883 that was on Paramount Plus, alongside The Mayor of Kingstown, which is not a spinoff, it's just a separate show, just did just as well, which is crazy. Same thing for AMC's The Walking Dead and Better Call Saul. Just okay. 90 Day Fiance, those franchises did really well in its cable demo. And then we also have CBS show Ghosts, which surprised everybody. I think the two biggest comedy shows of the past year are Ghosts and Abbott Elementary. In the past television year, the TV season, are Ghosts and Abbott Elementary. Like, again, nobody expects these shows to do well because they're on broadcast, but man, those came out swinging, which is crazy, which is great. As for losers, baseball definitely lost. NFL dominated the rating schedules. NBA's always does well. The thing is about baseball, they're losing viewers. The people who watch it are old and dying. I just watched both in the past month. Both the LA Times and CBS Sunday Mornings did feature, did short documentaries on the Savannah Bananas, which is a minor league baseball team that is bringing in, that's like the Harlem Globetrotters of baseball. They're bringing in dancing and all these events and things, and it's still baseball. And it has, quite frankly, when the owner of the Savannah Banana, co-owner, because he owns it with his wife, when he was describing the rules, my eyes were glazing over because it just seemed kind of superfluous. But I think the dancing and the fun aspect makes it enticing to watch. And anyway, so baseball is losing, and maybe that needs to be the future. Quite frankly, the Savannah Bananas, they might be what baseball can be, if not a candiedized version of it. Shows like Magnum PI were canceled, which stinks. And even though it had really good viewers, especially considering it is on broadcast. So I never watched it, but whatever. So the top shows were actually football. Sunday Night Football, which is on NBC. Thursday Night Football, which is on Fox and NFL Network. Monday Night Football, which is on ESPN. And Thursday Night Football, which was also on NFL Network. They all are in the top 4. Yellowstone was number 5. This Is Us was number 6. We have two Chicago shows taking up 2 slots in the top 10, which is crazy to me. It's PD and Fire. What happened to Med? I guess Med's not that. Oh, but it is in the top 15. Speaking of Med, Grey's Anatomy is at 11 with Law and Order SVU and Saturday Night Football. Even still, Saturday Night Football did better than regular broadcast shows, and I think it only aired maybe 6 to 8 times or something like that. There's a lot of procedural shows, hour-long procedurals, and a lot of game shows. So you have shows like Next Level Chef on Fox, which first season aired and it tied 19th in the broadcast season, in the television season. So far, I'm only seeing broadcast, and then you have to scroll down to the you have to scroll down to the 30s to see which is The Walking Dead, the first cable show to be the most popular, the in-demand show. NBA Saturday primetime, 36. Simpsons, 36, baby. That's right. I love The Simpsons. Interesting to see that as the first animated show here. Wow. All right, interesting. It's tied with Shark Tank, NBA Saturday Primetime, Abbott Elementary, The Walking Dead, SWAT. A lot of CBS shows, because CBS is still the most watched broadcast network. And then it went to get more cable shows. You get down to the 50s with Family Guy, Law and Order, The Cleaning Lady, but cable shows. 90 Day Fiance, Before the 90 Days, 90 Day Fiance The Other Way, Below Deck, Uh, wow. MTV's The Challenge, Spies, Lies, and Allies, and then regular 90 Day Fiance Vanilla. And then finally, you get down to the 60s and you see shows I did not even know existed. Sister Wives on TLC, America's Got Talent Extreme, Be Positive, which was canceled. Thank God. Bob's Burgers. SmackDown. Friday Night SmackDown, excuse me. And if this is this an official list? Are these shows, because they are including everything, but on broadcast and cable, but I don't see any. I don't see any streamers, and I also don't see any premium cable. Premium cable. I think these just might be easy access shows. South Park's up here, and in the '80s, alongside Young Rock and Alter Ego. That's the show on Fox where it was a singing show and people sang behind avatars, which I thought was stupid. The Curse of Oak Island on History. We have two black shows, The Blacklist and Blackish. You have to make yourself laugh. NBA basketball on ESPN. NBA basketball on TNT. Both tied at 89. Married at First Sight in Lifetime. Ordinary Joe. Ugh, gross. And then Queens is the last show. But these are all tied at 89. So, take that as you will. And FX is Snowfall. Wow. I see a lot of shows like Ordinary Joe and Our Kind of People. I think Our Kind of People was canceled. Or maybe it got. Anyway. I see a lot of shows that I recognize. I see a handful of shows I don't. This is so. Oh, then there's more lists. The top 100 shows and total viewers. So we've got Yellowstone was number 3. Yellowstone is number 3 after Sunday night and Thursday night football. Wow. In terms of total viewers, La Brea 25. Get out of here. La Brea sucks. La Brea is the show that is about in the middle of Los Angeles, a sinkhole happens, and a bunch of people are taken into prehistoric dinosaur world that is under the city. I watched the first episode. Such bad acting. I just couldn't handle it, and such a stupid, ugly looking. Anyway, I stopped watching the show. I want the cast to do well. I think it's great. I think one of them is differently abled. I think the daughter of Natalie Z is differently abled. I think Natalie Z is great. Great cast. And a lot of no names. So that's good. Or a lot of people don't have a lot of credits. And I like to see that. Especially in a broadcast show. But it was so poorly written and poorly acted. I just couldn't handle it. Let's continue on. These are the shows that are in the top demanded shows in terms of total viewers, most watched, are all going to be broadcast because not everybody has cable and you can't really count streaming numbers reliably because people don't report it. Netflix, Hulu, they don't really report these things. HBO Max. It's a lot of the same shows. And I think it's all the shows on broadcast. There's 100 shows on here. Too bad for Mr. Mayor, which was canceled. Because it is at 100. Oh, no, Better Call Saul's on here, so cable 99. Wow. Cool. The most watched networks of 2021. And would you believe it? CBS. And then NBC, then Fox, ABC. Obviously, you have the Fox News. And they have ESPN, Univision, TNT, Hallmark, MSNBC, HGTV, TBS, Ion. Ugh, I hate Ion. When I was let go from my previous job, they just bought Ion. And yeah, TLC, Telemundo, Discovery, History, Food Network, which I watch all the time, including right now, INSP, I don't know what that is, and USA Network. Top rated networks of 2021 by adults 18 to 49, NBC, Fox, CBS, ABC, ESPN, Univision, TNT, TBS, Telemundo, TLC. And considering this is a year where we're coming out of the big swing of a pandemic and broadcast has to step up. They learn like that they can't just rely on what they usually had to rely on for shows. And I think a lot of networks, including NBC and ABC, NBC and CBS didn't trust themselves to have these new shows. So they relied on the FBI. They relied on Dick Wolf, FBI, on Chicago, on Law and Order, and on things that we know, the franchises that we know that we're gonna like and watch, that they know we're gonna like and watch. So they relied on that, and it really showed. And now they retain viewers, but here comes this next season. Can you keep doing that? Can you have a fourth Law and Order show, which I think they're working on? Can you have more Chuck Lorre shows? Can you continue working in the same way that you've done and expect it to go against streaming and have those people not just watch live or watch same day live plus 7 days or live plus 14 or however you're counting it, but can you trust them to continue to come back? And that's where I think it's hard for them to understand that they can't just think about the same thing all the time. Listen, I'm tired. If you like what you heard here, head to the website cpluscomedy.com, where I'm going to talk to a comedian coming up. I've already talked to the person and I have it recorded, and it's going to go out, I promise you, hopefully next week. You can follow us. If you want to see a video version of the show, youtube.com/cpluscomedy, where you can see me sitting in a shirt that I wore when I shot an episode of News Time. You can also on youtube.com/cpluscomedy watch our premiere show, News Time, which is where I take one story and I dissect it and I come by the time. 400 is next week. We'll see what happens. Twitter, Instagram @cpluscomedy. Me on Twitter, Instagram @ChadBlackWhite. Facebook @cpluscomedy. What else? Rate, review, subscribe. Tell your friends about this show. It's great. I like doing it, even though I don't do it often. All right, I gotta go. I'm tired. Bye.